you have to accept it. Or you're not allowed in. Please keep yourself muted if you're not a designated speaker. You may use the chat to communicate with each other and ask any sort of questions. We will be monitoring the chat for a question and answer session later on. And recording and slides will be available as soon as possible after the session is completed. So with that, then just briefly about the hosting team. 3 of us here hosting it today are all from ICLA Europe, which is in charge of this webinar series within the CINTRAN project. Myself, George, Jin in the background, and Yulen you'll hear from later when he's moderating the discussion. Next. So just to start things off with a little bit of an icebreaker poll, we have 2 questions. We'll start off with the less serious one first. So, which music style do youth in coal plus regions prefer to listen to? Coal plus meaning oil, peat, and coal, as well as carbon intensive regions. So please answer what you think youth in your region in general listen to. By the way, this is meant as a joke, so just feel free to answer anything that you wish. So, seems that auto-tune seems to be popular. Mining-themed Korean boy bands. Rock and roll. Nobody seems to be interested in pickaxe percussion punk. That's okay. Country western waltz. Coming from Texas, I can appreciate that nobody is interested in that, so that's fine with me. As you're answering it, or not, I will point out one of the purpose of the first question is not really to see what kind of music you like or you think your youth listen to, but rather, yeah, Harry Styles, for example. But not all youth are the same. And so this is part of the point of the first question, is that these made up genres here, which don't really exist, as far as I know, they cannot be used to say this is what our youth in our region listen to. Everyone is different. So if you want to find out what your youth are interested in, musically or professionally or whatever, education-wise, then you need to go and talk to them. You need to engage with them. So that's kind of the point of the first question. The second one is a bit more serious. Which kinds of approaches have been tried in your region to engage youth in just transition? This means positively or negatively, but they've been tried. Seems like public meetings, consultations have been quite popular. Youth involvement in working groups is also common there. Active social outreach. There don't seem to be so many public authority liaisons dedicated to youth set up. And there doesn't seem to be anyone who's reporting back feedback to youth about reporting back how youth feedback was integrated into just transition planning, which I think is an important part. And I think maybe Lorenzo, when he presents, will also agree that youth want to know that what they're saying matters. So maybe take that as also forward, that some of the things that aren't being done in your region, maybe it's not too late to still do some of these. I think for now, we'll just end the poll and keep that as it was. And then I'll move on to talking about today's CINTRAN project. So next. CINTRAN project is seeking to unravel the challenges of structural change in energy-intensive industries and regions. It's not only focused on coal regions, although that is a large focus. It has 4 focal regions: the Rhenish mining area in Germany, Silesia in Poland, Western Macedonia in Greece, and Ida-Viru in Estonia. And we've already started creating deliverables about coping strategies. We'll have more to come, looking into narratives and justice, socioeconomic aspects. So please keep tuned at cintran.eu for more. Next. here is for those who are researchers, there's the sort of breakdown of how the work packages function. We have theories, we're looking at patterns and dynamics, looking at transformations, looking for responses and impacts. This is part of the capacity building in work package 5, and we also have dissemination. This is just for those who are interested. As I already mentioned, CINTRAN.eu is where you can find out all this information. We have publications, tools listed there, events like this webinar will be listed there, including news. Next. I mentioned coping strategies. That's already one of the deliverables that you can find on the tools section. So definitely worth looking into how different regions have been coping so far, for good and for worse. Next. And lots of publications. A lot of these are scientific publications, but also some of them are practical. For example, this toolbox, which comes from the Co-Region Transition Initiative. So there's a mix of academic and practical things on there. Next. This is part of the capacity building program today. This is number 5 out of the entire webinar series. It was based on a needs assessment that was done. There will be 5 more after this still to come. So I'm going to already go ahead and promote now at the beginning for anyone who doesn't stay until the end. On March 28th, there will be a gender-related webinar for gender dynamics within coal regions. So please stay tuned there on the events page. Next. So today's session is powering the just transition through youth engagement. And the first speaker is Lorenzo Manca. He's born and raised in nice and sunny Sardinia, but which is also host to Italy's last coal mines. He left there and decided to contribute to climate action at the EU level to maximize EU's already high climate ambitions. And he has an academic background in climate policy. He started working on advocacy at the EU level a few years ago. And at the same time, he joined Generation Climate Europe in order to specifically strengthen the representation of youth, especially in just transition topics. He currently coordinates first dedicated reports on youth engagement, which he will be presenting about today, published in May and October of last year. And he's also actively involved in dissemination for EU Teens for Green, which is a commission-based program focused on youth to be involved in projects and especially in just transition regions. So I'll hand it over to Lorenzo.
Yes, thank you very much, George. And yes, so I share my screen. Yes, can you see it? Yes, perfect. So thank you very much and for the introduction. And yes, yeah, I'm Lorenzo Manca. I'm from the Generation Climate Europe, which is the climate focus coalition of the 8th biggest youth network at the European level. And within my organization, I specifically coordinate the project on the just transition, where we specifically went to together with Manca, which is another monitoring NGO, how young people specifically have been engaged in the just transition, because the just transition is about rewriting the future of coal plus communities. And that's why we think that whenever you talk about future, you also need to engage the next generations that are going to live in those communities from the very beginning. So, well, because of that, we went on this adventure to find out basically what was the situation of youth engagement in a just transition at the moment, and keeping monitoring that so that then we can empower also youth to play a bigger role in the just transition. So the report was made by my organization, Generation Climate Europe, and then by Bankwatch, which is a network of NGOs in Central and Eastern Europe that focus on monitoring public spending in particular, and they have a dedicated project on a just transition as well. Well, in this short presentation, I will just go through a little bit. Well, I will just remind a little bit the just transition in the EU, but for most of you, it will not be necessary. And then I go straight into, I mean, what is the purpose of our report, and then what are been our main findings, the best practices that we found, and then the recommendations that we came up with. So, I mean, in terms of what is the just transition, I mean, I just say it for the people that maybe are not too much familiar with the just transition mechanism in particular. Well, basically in the Green Deal, the European Union has included a dedicated just transition mechanism, which mobilizes around 45 billion euros with 3 main pillars. That basically are supposed to support the transition away from fossil fuels in the specific regions that have been identified by the member states and that have been confirmed by the European Commission throughout last year. So basically, I mean, when the Green Deal was published, the member states started writing dedicated plans, the territorial just transition plans, to identify the regions that would be supported by the just transition mechanism and what kind of transition they saw in those regions. And then the European Commission has approved the plans throughout 2022. And now pretty much the plans of every single member state apart from Bulgaria have been approved. And from this year, the main implementation phase will start and will go on until 2027. And some projects already started in some countries already at the end of last year. So when it comes to engaging young people in a just transition, I mean, the European Commission has been very clear from the very beginning that it was one of their desired outcomes. They always highlighted the importance of involving the next generations that are going to live in those communities in the transition from fossil fuels. And to do that, they adopted 2 main instruments. On one side, in 2021, they published a toolkit for the member states to engage young people in the preparation of their territorial just transition plans and also beyond. And I mean, it's a toolkit with a definition of what it means to engage young people meaningfully and provides also some practical examples so that the member states, but also other non-governmental actors could actually implement some strategies to engage young people in the decision-making for the just transition. And then last year, in the context of the European Year of Youth, the European Commission has also launched Youth is for Green, which is an experimental call for projects that will basically use 1 million euros to finance over 70 projects run by young people in the region supported by the just transition. I mean, the call was open in the last quarter of last year, and basically the winning projects are going to be announced next month. Well, this brings us a little bit to our report on youth engagement, because yeah, on one side we saw all the activities the European Commission was doing to try to push the member states to engage young people in making the territorial just transition plans. But on the other side, there was no monitoring or evaluation from the European Union on how this was going, and there was no knowledge about it basically. So what we did as Generation Climate Europe and Bankwatch was to try to fill this gap in terms of knowledge and cover ourselves how youth has been engaged in as many EU countries as possible, so that we could get a representative sample. And well, we published a first report already in May 2022, and then a second one in October 2022. I managed to pass from 12 EU countries to 15 EU countries all across the European Union. Well, regarding the latest edition, which is the most updated one, we're working on a new one for April, but for the moment, the most updated one is the one from October. And yeah, in over the 15 countries that we surveyed, we could find some form of youth engagement activities in 11 of them. So now, in a vast majority. And basically the formats that were adopted sometimes most of the time some calls and dialogues between the policymakers and youth representatives or students. And then sometimes there were workshops where people could be consulted on already consolidated drafts. So there wasn't really a possibility to provide input, but mostly to respond to the input from the authorities. And then youth representatives sometimes were included also in the working groups that were specifically giving the input of civil society to the territorial just transition plans. And this was a little bit more meaningful. So overall, because of these many strategies that were used across the countries, and sometimes even in different regions we see within the same country, well, the overall qualities was quite mixed. There was not a truly harmonized way of engaging young people, but at the same time, in a majority of member states, youth has been engaged, and many of them have already confirmed their intention to keep engaging it in the future. Like as of October, we could already find 4 countries in which youth representatives were going to be engaged in the monitoring phase of the just transition, and 2 more countries that explicitly said that they will do so in their territorial just transition plans. So overall, this is a map that summarizes a little bit the situation all across the EU. So the countries in green are those where we could find some form of youth engagement, and the countries in red are those where we could not find any form of youth engagement. So they are just France, Luxembourg, Italy, and Romania. And this does not mean specifically that maybe there have not been any youth engagement, but we could not find any evidence of it, and especially we could not find even local activists who took part in youth engagement activities, whereas in the other countries we could find both evidence of that, and also in many cases we could correlate that with interviews to the young people that are specifically participated in those youth engagement activities. So based on that, the best cases that we could find were the case of Konin in Poland, where, I mean, at first the authorities were not interested in engaging young people, but then a self-mobilization of young people themselves brought interest from the authorities for them, and young people were allowed to create, both being represented in the working groups that were preparing the input for the territorial just transition plans, and also to have their own working group where they could discuss specifically the youth-related aspects of the territorial just transition plan. And then their input was actually included, part of it, in the territorial final version of the plan. Then we also have the case of Florina in Greece, where also there initially the authorities were not interested in engaging young people, but then young people themselves mobilized and got the attention of the national ministry, and the national ministry organized a call with them to listen to their demands, and also organized an event specifically for them when the Commissioner for Regional Development of the European Union, Elisa Ferreira, was present in Florina. And the last case that we have, and we have also one of our panelists who is can tell her story directly for this case, is the case of Ida-Viru in Estonia, where actually the national government and a local NGO created together a citizen assembly specifically for young people, so that they could brainstorm and give their inputs to the just transition plan. And then the authorities reported on what part of the input they adopted and which part did not, which was also a good way to also make sure that people knew what happened to the input that they gave to the authorities. So based on, I mean, these the main findings of our report, I mean, our main recommendations for the main actors involved, so the member states in the European Union, where that member states should definitely try to must include youth representatives in the monitoring phase. They are setting up now all these monitoring committees to monitor the implementation of the transition fund, and youth representatives should be engaged in all of them. And then the European Commission can still keep encouraging the member states to do so, and also giving them practical support, keeping promoting its toolkit, for instance, so that it can make sure that member states keep engaging young people or start whenever they did not. And then the European Parliament can still use its monitoring powers to make sure that the civil society in general is engaged in a just transition, and young people are as part of it. Then, yeah, I wanted to give just a highlight on EU Teens for Green, because it's a very interesting experimental call for projects that I was already mentioning before. That's basically mobilizing 1 million euros to finance over 70 projects all across the EU, run by young people and based in the just transition regions. So yeah, the selection is currently undergoing, and the implementation is expected from March of this year to March of next year. So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for the very interesting presentation. Thank you also for creating this very valuable report on how the youth engagement has been done in different transition regions in Europe. I'm sure it's very much appreciated among those that are trying to find some information on how to move forward on that direction. And we will get back to you in a moment with questions. But first of all, I would like to present our other panelists for the day. So I will share the screen just for 1 second. And we have here, first of all, Julia Politševa. She is the board member of People with Purpose Liit. This is an NGO from Estonia, and the organization is committed to unlocking the potential of the Ida-Viru region in Estonia and creating opportunities for their inhabitants. Julia is also a part-time English teacher in a local primary school, and she believes that teamwork is the key when it comes to building the best future for ourselves and the best future for the just transition regions, of course. Then we also have Elefterio Topaloglou. He's an associate professor at the Department of Regional Development and Cross-Border Studies at the University of Western Macedonia in Greece. His research interests focus on the evolution and effects of borders and space and economy, the European territorial cooperation, just transition, special justice. And Elefterio has also been the director at the Association of Local Governments of Western Macedonia, so he can give us the other perspective of the local governments in this case. And finally, we also have Agata Kuźmińska from Poland. She is the founder and president of the Green Future Institute Foundation. This is a local NGO working for the future and just transformation of Eastern Wielkopolska in Poland. And she, since 2018, is a social partner of the fair transformation process of Eastern Wielkopolska. Agata also supports the transformation team set up at the Regional Development Agency in Konin that was mentioned just a moment ago by Lorenzo also. So I would like to welcome the three of you. And yeah, without further ado, I would like to start the first round between our panelists by asking a question to Julia. And yes, we have been seeing in the presentation with Lorenzo how most of the regions are engaging youth in the just transition, but some still are lacking this aspect. So I would like to ask you, how can we make the engagement in the just transition more appealing for the youth, so for the young people to want to be engaged in the just transition? So, Julia.
Yes, thank you very much for such a nice introduction. Honestly speaking, I only can speak from my own experience. It would be hard to say. I wouldn't say it would be fair to say if I can speak from all the youth's experience, but I think one of the, like I've mentioned, one of the keys to engaging anybody, doesn't matter which age, what gender, it's teamwork. When people see other people doing something, people want to join it, especially if this activity correlates with their personal values. And yes, our youth engagement, it actually started with the Climate Assembly for Youth, which took place in this region where I'm right now. And it's been, I think it's been a historical event in Estonia, because especially for Ida-Viru, because we have a really, how do I say it? Basically, the reputation of our region isn't the best in the whole country due to the historic events. Now what is happening actually, Estonia is trying to become friends with our region. And but it didn't came from the government at first. The most interesting thing that the NGO that started working on the project Climate Assembly, it's an NGO that is based outside of Ida-Viru, and it's it's 99% Estonian NGO. Just so you know the background, the majority of the population here is mainly Russian-speaking community. So yes, there is definitely a language barrier when it comes to engaging youth, because the majority of youth in our region speaks Russian. And Estonian is not their first language. So there are huge challenges in our country to engage youth, especially here. But one thing that this organization did perfectly, and the way they engaged youth, first of all, they were open-minded to work with Russian-speaking communities. There was no, there was no prejudice towards us. And that was enough for the people who speak both Russian and Estonian, including myself, to actually help this project to come to life. So I was just of the people who was talking to the youth, but the main work was done by Rohe-Tiger, which is this Estonian NGO that works on this youth representation. And basically, yes. What could, based on this experience, what could I recommend? First of all, when you are engaging the youth, you have to understand what are their personal motives. Nobody wants to do something for somebody unless it benefits them directly. And in our case, many people didn't feel like their voices were heard in the country. And having this opportunity to come together and make up approximately 30 proposals towards the government directly, it was actually a really great opportunity for people to be heard. And another thing is environment. So if you want to engage somebody, and first of all, you have to see their values, see what they want to do if they want to be engaged, and make the perfect environment for the people to be included. So in our case, we were provided with the best Estonian to Russian, Russian to Estonian translators. We had managers, monitors who were all the time who were navigating this whole thing, myself included. I was one of those managers. And the thing that came out of it was pretty interesting, because everybody believed that for the most passive region in the country, this would be like a one-time thing. Basically, it was it felt as if it was done for getting a checkpoint. However, some people, some youth members were so they were so inspired by this, and that's basically the story how the People with Purpose Liit NGO came to living. So basically, if you give the perfect environment for the youth, and if you actually ask them about their motives and act on those motives, basically helping them to understand that we want you to have the better future, the youth will act on their own. It's just the question of speaking the same language, I guess. And it's not just Estonian Russian. I'm talking, if you want to speak to youth, if you want to engage youth, you have to do it in their language, not in your own language, not based on your own motives.
Definitely. Thank you, Julia. So that's a very interesting case, actually. Yes, of course, we have to engage youth and understand what they want, but we never think that there could be like language barriers, for example. So in the same country, of course, it can happen. So each case has to be studied separately. And then, of course, to understand their needs and make them feel motivated and make them feel part of the process. So in this sense, I would like to ask to Elefterio now if we can see how maybe we can make youth people motivated, but then how can the public authorities give youth a meaningful role in the just transition? How can they make them have a really meaningful role so that this also helps for their motivation?
Thank you, Julian, for this question. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, George, Julian, and the CLAY team for the invitation to participate in such an interesting event, focusing on the role of youth in transition, in just transition. And I would like to congratulate you for this initiative. And also, I would like to say a thank to Ioana Macri. I see she's participating in this event for suggesting me to be a part for this interesting panel. I think the question you addressed, Julian, is critical. Starting off, allow me to tell you that I had been working as a development and scientific consultant for the Association of Local Authorities, as you mentioned in the very beginning, for more than 30 years. And I've been the director of the association over the last 10 years before moving to the university. This long experience in local authorities aspects gave me the opportunity to realize that the role of municipalities in mobilizing young people in public sphere could be crucial, potentially could be crucial. Whenever the youth prove to be socially reflexive, the results at the local level were very, very positive. And I'm saying this because the local authorities need fresh ideas that are free from prejudices and stereotypes of the old political system, I would say. In my view, this is the solely approach if we want policy making at a local level to be effective, inclusive, and resilient. Having all this in mind, how it could give to the active and constructive role of youth in the transition a real meaning, let's say. To this end, I would like to share with you some thoughts. First precondition, first prerequisite is to deal with young people not as immature people, but we should treat them as equals. This is the very first and the very crucial step we should build upon this. This means that we should have them on board throughout the whole process of transition, and there is no doubt that this approach will enrich our work and the outcomes, giving the implementation of just transition a long-lasting relevance and significance on the ground. In Western Macedonia in particular, a region which is experiencing a very drastic and somehow painful transition. This is very important. Therefore, it's important not to treat youth participation as a simple formality or as a box that we should just put a tick in a bureaucratic chain of procedures, but you should treat it as an essential part of the social mobilization in order to build up a new productive development model. This is the first. Once we recognize and appreciate the added value of young people's voice, the second step could be to send them a clear message that their participation matters. In other words, it's critical to understand that their opinions will have a weight, and their active participation will impact the decision-making process. Practically speaking, this means that we ought to give young people the space to express themselves and the means to put their ideas into practice and contribute actively. I pointed out that Julia also mentioned that it is very vital to pass the message that the youngs people's voices are heard. The third very important point is the need for full transparency, I would say. It is apparent that young people need clarity regarding their roles and responsibilities, and this could be translating into an appropriate, how to say, who does what setting, clear instructions, and an explanation of what is expected from them. This is also crucial. The fourth thought I would like to feed this debate deals with the need to invest in capacity building activities among youth, young people. If we want to make youth's participation meaningful, we should take initiatives to improve their knowledge and skills through awareness activities, through training actions, to provide them knowledge-based platforms, and so on and so forth. So the role of capacity building. I will close this first part of the discussion, Julian, with the role of social media for youth in particular. This means could be proved very critical to get the word out. For instance, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all these kind of means related to young generations could be very fruitful and very productive means to get the message. And needless to say, of course, that when we reach out youth via these means, we should use a simple and youth-friendly language that will encourage them to join. In other words, we should build a common language to build a bridge to communicate with them in their language, and to pass a very simple and clear message that their participation matters. This is from my side.
Thank you very much, Elefterio. Definitely very important to talk the same language and approach in an equal to equal position, giving the space for them to talk, and obviously making it clear and transparent what is wanted from youth and what role they can have in the transition. And so, having heard this, now I will jump to Agata and maybe ask her what has been her own experience, for example, then in working with local authorities in your region, in Wielkopolska. What has been the challenges? Has it been easy to engage with them? So what's your experience?
Thank you, Julian, for these questions, and thank you for this debate. Well, our experience in Wielkopolska are very interesting because, as already Julia said, the most valuable situation is when the local NGOs, local citizens are self-engaged in this process. So the same situations happened here in Wielkopolska, where let's say all just transitions started because of the NGOs, activists, and people engaged in the creation of the future, myself included. So I'm very proud that our job is well seen around the Europe, and people are very open to hear about our story. When we come to the young engagement, this is a very interesting because people here grew up in the very hard narratives that this is the end of the region, that the economics are not in well condition, that people are leaving, etc. They heard from their parents and parents of their parents that they have to learn English, leave, and found their future somewhere else. So this is the situation of very lot of regions around the Europe, especially small regions as the Wielkopolska region. So first of all, when we came to the just transition process, we noticed that we need to somehow change these narratives, because we felt that the just transition is hope. We felt that we can find some new hope in this process. So it can be a hope for people who work in energy sector, for example, to care about their future, but as well to care about the future of young people who will live here in a few years. So when we felt this future, when we felt this hope, we decided to talk a little more with young people, and we were very lucky to have regional development agency working on this process as a public institution, and they were very open to cooperative with local NGOs, because the just transition was something very new for all of us. We didn't know very much like good experience from different regions, etc. So we needed to work with just transition by ourselves. So that's why regional development agency started to ask people, to ask NGOs who were already involved. They asked entrepreneurs. They asked politicians. They asked local public administration workers, etc., etc. And after that, me and my colleague Piotr, who is a young activist in Konin, we also tell regional development agency that they need to hear young people, because if we talk about future, we need to talk with people who will create this future. So it's such easy and such difficult in the same time, because just notice that politicians mostly are older people, and they are not very, understand the needs of young people. So it was very hard. But we felt that this engagement, this part of hearing young people, is the first step to make them feel that they are also responsible for their own future. So it was like the first part of taking their future into their hands. And that's why Regional Development Agency decided to work with them. And it was a very interesting meeting when young people created like over 20 ideas of proposals, what should happen for them for make their future better. And as examples, for example, they tell more about young people's situation in transportation, in education, in workplaces, etc. So this content was very interesting, and they were they took them every project they proposed. It was took into the just transition plan. So it was very nice situation, and I'm happy to have my part in this.
Great. Thank you, Agata. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Great to hear that your regional agency is then making an effort to engage young people now, even if it can be challenging the process in the future, but it's a good first step, definitely. And good that NGOs like the one you're working with are getting involved, definitely very important. So on this regard, maybe I would also make a question to Lorenzo that I've seen in the chat. Dimitris was asking if there are these youth organizations or NGOs in every country which was involved engaging youth in the just transition. So if in all these countries in which the youth engagement was positive, the activists and NGOs played an important role, and if other regions that couldn't engage youth should look for this.
Yes, thank you for the question. And well, from what we could find through our monitoring, we could find actually some form of youth mobilization, both in the regions, the just transition regions where youth engagement actually took place, and mostly also in those where it didn't take place. Of course, also in this case, the situation is very mixed, because there are some regions in which, I mean, particularly COVID has really affected the activities of local NGOs and taken and diminished the membership of movements like Fridays for Future or other local NGOs focused on environment. But overall, we could find that whenever young people were engaged, they were either engaged either as students and student representatives or as members of an already consolidated group or a consolidated association. So, I mean, the world of NGOs has been crucial to actually convey the voice of young people and to show to their and to allow also individuals most of the times to find a connection with the authorities and being able to voice their position.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you very much. So now I would like to ask another question to maybe Julia, for example. We have been talking about engaging young people. They have to feel motivated. But once they engage, maybe you could tell us what are mainly the needs that young people have. What do they care about? What is that they are looking for in the just transition? Yeah, how can we work on that?
Actually, that's an amazing question to ask, especially coming from the place where I said that we have to, first of all, we have to listen to the youth and regard their interests. And what I've noticed, if you come to a young person and ask him directly in his face, what do you want? Most of them will tell you they don't know. But if you come to know this person a little closer, and if you learn about the story, and if you remember yourself when you were young, you probably might come up with this message that the majority of youth, they just want to be in a better place than they are right now. And it doesn't matter which region they're from. They can be in Ida-Viru, they can be in Tallinn, they can be in New York. All youth, they have dreams. They just want to have a better life. And even if there are some kids who really want to have a stable life with a stable job, all they want is to have a good quality of living, even if they don't realize it by themselves. And once they become adults and they learn how hard it is to keep this stability of life, this is when they start to value it. So it's actually a really interesting question. But if we will talk about our region, I guess the best way to speak for youth is by addressing the result of like the reason why youth don't stay in Ida-Viru, why they leave, because the majority of youth wants to live in the end. And the reason is the opportunities. Our region has done a great job of opening college faculties, university faculties from Estonia, but it's still not the same experience as in the capital or in our university capital, Tartu. What youth really want is having the same experience here as they can get in the capital, which means more opportunities, more interesting people to meet, higher opportunities to earn more money. It's simple as that. More concerts, more activities, more, I don't know, more beautiful streets. Because here, currently, and like Agata said, there's a hope for just transition. It's not small money, but one thing that is really concerning personally for us is that the majority of money will be put on on energetics, on the companies, which is a good investment. But there also should be what also should be considered is putting some money on making these areas more pleasant for the youth to stay at, which will take a lot of time. And there is like I've mentioned, it's really fun because Agata was talking about her experience in her region, and it is 100% the similar experiences with me and in my region. I was born and raised in Ida-Viru, and all my life I was told that I should leave, I should learn English, I should learn Estonian, I should be like this jack of all trades and go anywhere, be anywhere except of Ida-Viru. And well, I did go, and I returned because I saw the huge potential in my region. But all the people, all the youth members who are talented, who are gifted on languages, who can actually give something to the region, they won't stay there unless it becomes a better place for them. So putting my answer shortly, it's simple. Just give the youth a better environment, and then most of them won't stay because there's still this reputation thing. You know, the region can grow into a better thing, but it will take years for people to realize that it's already good, because reputation is a sticky thing. But if there was an opportunity to change it as fast as possible and engage youth into making their dreams come true at the spot where they're at, they will be more than happy to stay, because they don't have to pay rent, they don't have to buy apartments in the crazy rich capitals. It's the best place to be as long as there are opportunities open for them. Yeah. So yeah, I guess this is it.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I don't know if Agata, you would like to very quickly complement also as a young activist, and maybe just tell us, in your case, if young people also know their needs, or it takes a process of yeah.
Yeah, it's all true. And well, I'm also I'm not young, but I'm also not adult. Let's say I'm only 32 right now, and I feel like one step I'm young and one step I'm adult. And I am also this case when my parents tell me that learn English and leave, and as I do, as I did, I learned English and left for a while, and I noticed that there's no, you know, like crazy happiness elsewhere. And I can be also happy in my hometown, in Konin, in Eastern Wielkopolska. So after a few years, I came back and started to work here on just transition and the future. And now I feel that my experience is also a good example to share with young people, that it is okay to leave. It is okay to learn English, because, you know, you can get a nice job online and work anywhere, like live anywhere and work all around the world. So I shared also my experience that it's okay to leave, but you have a nice place to come back. And that's why I also try to work with just transition, and also as Julia said, create this new reality, new new city, new region where people just feel good, that they have good access on communication, good access, for example, for public health, the good access to culture, etc., etc. It is difficult, but I feel that that it is the only way to create a nice future for myself and my colleagues who are now a little bit younger.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's good that even if you left, you both came back and now are working, of course, to make things better. And as time is running, I would like to make now a quick round with the three of you and make the three of you a question for maybe tell us which is a top recommendation, let's say, or a 1-minute recommendation for your own or other local authorities in your regions in improving the role of the youth in the just transition. You already touched upon this, but a very concise recommendation, let's say. So if we can start with Elefterio, please.
Thanks, Julen. Allow me to say that having heard all these reflections in this panel, I'm glad and sad simultaneously. Glad because I am participating in a panel with young people, and sad because I am the oldest one. This is the first. Regarding recommendations, okay, just some tips, let's say. First recommendation: if we want to build up a resilient partnership at a local level, we should start off with the mapping of the local actors, of the key local actors and the key stakeholders in the local environment. This means that we should think about raising awareness about young people in order to attract them to take part in the political participation of the transition. We should keep in mind that many, if the most, but many young people feel that they are out of the game, of the political game. We are experiencing times in which individualism seems to be dominant. But at the same time, the irony is that old people like myself take critical decisions for their life. So we should think about how to cover this gap. Individualism and a distance from the policy-making process, and to attract them into the policy-making process. Second tip is we should take them seriously, the young people. This means that we should put aside any preconceived, let's say, perception regarding their abilities, their skills, their visions, their capability to provide something new and vital. And we should think about essential consultation, not just a bureaucratic tip in a process chain. Essential consultation and constructive discussions with them, based at intragenerational, let's say, approach. The next thing is that we should not treat them as a uniform group, as a homogeneous group. It's not homogeneous, it's not uniform. There are a broad variety among them. There are young workers, there are students, there are youth employed, there are many different kind of young people. So we should adjust our strategy upon the specificities of each group. Mm-hmm. And the last thing, Julen, and I'm closing, is just it's crucial to think about networking It's something pointed out also by Agata and Julia. This means that we should map out all the national, local, and international organizations, and to provide them platforms of communication like this initiative. This initiative, this project, CINTRAN, could act as a platform for communicating among young people.
Thank you, Dr. Rees.
Thank you.
And since we run out of time, I can let Julia and Agata say one quick sentence, maybe motivational, but it has to be very quick, please. So maybe Julia first.
My second's running out. One thing, three things: transparency. Yes, that's the key, because if there's no trust, nobody will do anything. So the recommendation for local governments is to be as transparent as possible. Maybe build a platform where youth can actually exchange their ideas and go direct. So basically there needs to be a platform where the local governments and youth can interact directly. So it's not like they have to write millions of documents, send it by a pigeon and wait for millions of years for them to accept it. There should be a direct connection. So that I think that is one big thing that is I would recommend to the local governments. And yes, networking is important. As long as there is opportunity to network, more ideas will come, and probably there will be somebody who will bring them to life.
Thank you. Finally, Agata, very quickly.
I will only add that local authorities should be just open for cooperation, because if they're open, the process could start. If our local or regional development agency wouldn't be as open as they were, the process couldn't even start here. So for me, openness is the most important thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the three of you for the very interesting discussion. And I will let George just say the final words for the next step, next webinar.
Thank you, everyone, for very interesting. Also following the chat, lots of back and forth replying to each other. It's really, that's inspirational by itself as well, to see that this is something that's very engaging. So definitely keep it up. We will have more webinars, as Elefterio mentioned, that CINTRAN is a way to put out the platform of Just Transition further. Our next webinar, a bit over a month from now, at the end of March 28th, will be designing a gender just transition about women's agency and role in carbon-intensive regions. So this is also a rather neglected topic about the dynamics of gender balance and gender mainstream. It's not just about jobs for women. It's not just about women being at home. There are many aspects to it, and we're hoping to bring that forward. The registration form is already available. I think one of my colleagues will put that into the chat for you, so you can find that. One last thing I was also going to mention, as always, that recording and slides will be available. We're going to have a post-webinar blog on our website, probably even linked in the same one that you found to get to here. Otherwise, very inspirational. I think that we learned many things here that were new. We learned, confirmed many things that we probably would think of as common sense, but they're at the back of your mind until somebody brings it forward. And it's very nice to see that 3 different regions, and then all the regions that Lorenzo was highlighted in his report, that those are all very similar experiences. We need voice for youth, we need transparency, we need openness. Youth is not a tick box, youth is not a monolith of just one type. So we need to have all of this in mind. And I think it's very interesting, the point that Julia in particular, I said, this idea about culture, because a lot of times that people are talking about youth and they think about, okay, let's do educational reform, let's get some job opportunities for them. But if there's not culture, if there's not concerts available, if there aren't clubs to go to, if there's not theater, whatever it is that they want, then people are going to go to the capital where they can get all of it together. So that's also really important and definitely something to take forward. So then thank you, everyone. Please subscribe to our newsletter that we have. You can find that on our website as well. We're also on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. And until then, we will see you at the end of March. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.